Hi, I'm David Lynch, the contributing wine editor to Bon Appetit magazine. I'm thrilled to be sitting here with the beautiful Laura Bianchi from Castello Monsanto in Tuscany, one of the great producers of Chianti Classico in the central part of Tuscany between Florence and Siena. Laura, welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Laura, we've known each other for a while now, and I've always found Monsanto wines to be real exemplars of traditional winemaking in Tuscany. Can you first tell me a little bit about the history of Monsanto and your family's involvement with the estate?
Monsanto has been existing as a winery since 1700 and was bought by my grandfather in 1961 just because he felt in love in the landscape and he had no idea about wine. So it's been my father, Fabrizio, who to open the bottle he found in the cellar, and he realized the beautiness of the wine. In 1964, my father and my mother received the winery as a wedding gift, which is a nice gift.
That's a very nice gift.
And then they started their beautiful adventure in wine.
You know, one of the things that I've always loved about Monsanto wines is that they are resolutely Tuscan. They taste like the woods. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't realize about Chianti is how wooded it is. Can you describe a little bit of the terroir of Chianti? People know Chianti the brand. They don't necessarily know Chianti the place, and it's a beautiful place and I think an important terroir in Italy. Can you tell me a little bit about the place as a wine-making place?
Yeah, I want to say that there's still a little bit of confusion between Chianti and Chianti Classico. Above all, the consumer sometimes has not the clear idea which are the differences. There are two different territories, and Chianti Classico is the original one, the first denomination created in Tuscany in 1700, and is the territory between Florence and Siena, let's say. Inside of Chianti Classico, there are 9 districts, and with different microzones, with different type of soil, with different type of climate. So it's not so easy to identify 100% a style of Chianti Classico. In Monsanto, we have a type of soil called galestro, which is an ancient stratified clay, very calcareous soil from the Cretaceous.
And when you say calcareous, meaning containing a lot of limestone?
Limestone, right. From my point of view, from my style of wine, I love wine with distinct acidity. Of course, not too much. But when Sangiovese can get ripe in the right way, can really perfectly balance acidity, tannin.
Well, this leads me to my next question, which is about the house style at Monsanto, which I consider very traditional. And by traditional, I mean not a wine that is very massive or with lots of extraction. Can you talk a little bit about your philosophy and how that translates into the bottle?
I think that what I personally like, and also my father like more in a wine, is the elegance. And Sangiovese gives us the possibility to produce wine with elegance more than power or opulence. I think this is the main beautiness of Sangiovese, and also the particular spiciness, the cherry aromas. And another beautiful thing of Sangiovese is this capacity to have a very long aftertaste, long finish, which complete your mouth.
Your Reserva, let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it's always kind of still been a wine that speaks to the characteristics of Sangiovese. Can you describe Il Poggio in particular?
Il Poggio is the single vineyard and the oldest vineyard of the winery. It was already planted when the winery was bought 50 years ago, and then was enlarged by my father, because he immediately understood that because of the soil and the exposure, could really give a type of Sangiovese able to show the elegance and the power at the same moment of the Sangiovese tannin. We deeply believe that a Chianti Classico and above all a Chianti Classico Riserva need to be produced with the indigenous varietal always being in the Chianti blend. So Sangiovese, and we add 10% of Canaiolo and Colorino, which are the other two local grapes, so always been part of
Colorino, fairly obvious what that's used for, right? Color.
It's a grape with very strong skin that help a little bit the Sangiovese in the color, which Sangiovese is not a deep violet color.
What's great about you is that you're this very pretty, elegant lady, but you also you actually work in the vineyards, which I think is so impressive. What do you do to relax?
Yoga. I try to do it a couple of times a week. It's really helped me to eliminate my stress. And if I can, I do it on the Poggio Vineyard, which is beautiful energies from my point of view.
I should try that.
Yeah, I invite you next time.
And tell me a little bit about your family.
I have 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy. And of course, it's another busy part of my day. It's not so easy sometimes to combine everything, but I hope one day they will feel the same passion.
Do you have a favorite wine among the wines that you produce?
It's like to ask the mother, do you have a favorite kid?
Yes.
But I think there is a wine that is part of myself, is showing a personality that always attracts me, and is the single vineyard Il Poggio.
Il Poggio, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, I think that wine is certainly a flagship. Now you're doing some sort of newer wines, so to speak. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the more recent innovations at Monsanto in terms of new bottlings and so forth?
Well, my father already started in 1976. He decided to experiment an international varietal like Cabernet Sauvignon, because he thought that in the vineyard of Il Molino, where the Cabernet was planted, there were all the characteristics to produce a Tuscan Cabernet Sauvignon. So for sure this was an innovation made 30 years ago.
So you mentioned 2001 as being this spectacular vintage, which I remember well. Are there any vintages that you'd like to forget?
I think the worst was my first vintage when I started to work at the winery in 1989. It was raining all the time during the harvest and really difficult to pick the grapes. I didn't know what to do. I was crying in the vineyards, so I want to forget. And we didn't produce any bottle of wine in that vintage. We sold all the production on bulk.
Now, this might not be easy to articulate in your second language or third, however many languages you speak, but what would you say characterizes a Tuscan Cabernet Sauvignon? I know what I think, but I'd like to hear what you think.
But first of all, the spiciness of the wine, which is so evident and so different from Cabernet grown in France or California. The acidity, which is quite evident in our Nemo.
Nemo being the name of your Cabernet-driven wine.
And of course, the grain of the tannins, which are different too. It's difficult for me to.
No, the grain of the tannins, I think, is beautiful. I wish I could express that in Italian the way you just did in English. I could not. So my compliments. In your history at the winery, is there a particular vintage that stands out to you as being the most outstanding, the most special?
Well, one vintage that I really like to produce, it was 2001.
2001.
Perfect weather, perfect condition, and
great wines.
Great vintage.
Is there a vintage?
But we are under the sky. It's not always like this.
Right. 2001 was. I mean, we've had the decade from 2000 to 2010 was pretty good.
Pretty good.
Italian wine in general. Laura, I think these days a lot of people are pressured to feel like they have to have a very modern label. Your label is sort of the opposite of that. It's very traditional. Have there been any disputes within your family about label design and marketing in that regard?
of course, there's been during the last decade a lot of discussion on this label because it's for sure an old style label.
Yes.
But at the end of all discussion, we all agree that this is Monsanto, and this also reflecting our philosophy. What has been good in the tradition, we need to keep it. And this label never changed in the last 50 years, and is showing the castle, the property, so it's the image.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for sharing a little of the history of your estate with us, a little bit of story about your family. It's always fascinating too. And thank you for wearing flats, by the way. That's very, she was kind enough to wear flats because she's taller than me and I'm very self-conscious about it. So thank you for that. That was very generous. I appreciate you being with us.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Chin chin.
Chin chin.